Let's move to Prince Harry as well this morning, blaming his fight with the tabloid press for family breakdown. Michael Cole, royal commentator and writer, is with us on this one. Prince Harry pointing the finger again. That finger goes all over the place, other than to his own navel, it seems. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Ian. Yeah, this interview can only be seen as a not so subtle criticism, yet another one, of his brother, because the prince says it would have been nice if other members of the royal family had joined him in what he quite clearly sees as a crusade against the tabloid press. Of course, Prince William did settle with newspapers, publishers of The Sun, for a substantial sum of money for the hacking and other invasions of his privacy. Prince Harry, on the other hand, to our amazement, in my case, I'm certainly amazed that he's decided to take on the might of the press. He sees himself and describes himself as a dragon slayer. And his barrister, his colourful barrister, said he's going to fight the dragon even if he's going to get burned. Well, that has involved him in continual trips to the High Court, taking on various newspaper groups in cases heard by His Majesty's justices in the Royal Courts of Justice, in arguments argued by King's Counsel. Now, whether that looks rather good for the second son of the king to be using the royal courts in this way is a matter perhaps for others. But it's worth saying that this programme is on ITV, and it was a message left by ITN's Tom Bradby on the private line of the private secretary of Prince Harry and Prince William years ago, in which Bradby offered to loan the brothers some expensive ITN equipment for some video project they had. That actually gave the hint about how widespread the hacking was. And many, many people were hacked. Ian, I was hacked. My phone was hacked. It was unpleasant, but nobody died. I settled for a modest sum of money and a sincere apology from the company saying that they would never do it again. And I accepted that because I believe in a free, unfettered press being extremely important in this country, particularly as we have no written constitution and newspapers time after time expose wrongdoing in high places, and thank goodness they do. But Prince Harry takes a different view, and that means he's become the prince of litigation. And this document, this documentary program, highlights his complaints against the media in general. I think it's a bit of a stretch, Ian, when he says that it broke up. Well, it created a crisis with the life of his mother. I'm not quite sure what he meant by that, how that played out, but I'm quite sure, and he's suspicious, that her phone was hacked, and I'm sure it was. That was very unpleasant, and it should never have been done. But I think Fleet Street, as it then was, it was a pretty Wild West place. Yeah, it's reformed itself tremendously since then.
And I'm not going to defend the indefensible, but of course, years ago, journalists used to look through people's bins or sit in a seat next to them in a restaurant to get their information. This became, for a very short, in the grander scale, a very short period of time, the kind of 21st century version of trying to sift out information. It wasn't the best look, and the word hacking clearly gave it a gravitas of something we'd never seen before. But ultimately, it's not new, the idea that journalists were looking for gossip on famous figures. My problem with Prince Harry, and by the way, just another caveat to that, private detectives and independent freelance journalists who were doing this kind of stuff way before anybody in Fleet Street had even thought about it, should also be noted. But the slaying the dragon comment, Michael, I think is really interesting, because the trouble with, if I can align it to politics, the kind of left-wing thinking of slaying the dragon, when you've slayed the dragon, you simply go and find another dragon, because that's what your kind of instincts tell you to do. You're always in a battle. And I think Harry has got himself into a complete mess with this idea that all the press are against him. As you rightly said, thank goodness for a free press. Thank goodness for some of those stories about the royals that we only know about because of diligent tabloid journalism. Because if we didn't have that, we would never have found out what's going on. So that should be added as well. And he's put himself up there, as you rightly say, as this kind of totemic figure of all things that are good, right and just. And I don't know this self-appointed title. I don't know how much energy it's got left in it, to be honest, because it's becoming a little tiresome, a bit boring, and I think people have stopped listening.
I think you've summed it up rather well there, because it isn't a good look. I think he is in a very privileged position. When you're in a privileged position, you mustn't ever abuse those privileges. And the natural instinct of the royal family is to rise above these things and to obviously take action as is necessary, but often behind the scenes. I've often written and said that the time to worry for the royal family is when people are no longer interested in them. And of course it is interest that keeps the institution alive, and quite rightly so. And they have to balance it against the fantastic amount of good publicity they get for the tremendous work they do. The institution of the monarchy in our constitution, it could not be exaggerated, the importance of it. It's the best safeguard we have against extremism and dictatorship, and it's an institution that the vast majority of the people in this country support and admire. And if you have a privilege like that, occasionally there'll be some brickbats along with the bouquets. I'm not defending what went on. As I say, I was a victim of myself. But you have to take these things in proportion. You have to say, well, okay, nobody died, nobody was hurt. Of course, it's unpleasant. But in life, these things happen. You have to take the rough with the smooth, rise above it, be a little bit mature, and not pursue to the nth degree newspapers, because, as we both know, they're having a tough time. They are an important part of our society. They do a tremendously good job, and yet they're having a rough time because of advertising, circulation falling, young people not reading newspapers, and so on. I don't have to draw a picture. So obviously the prince isn't listening to me. He does what he wishes to do from his redoubt in California, and I'm quite sure we'll be seeing him in the new year yet again in the High Court, taking on the dragons and hoping not to get burned.
Just a final point, briefly, if you would, Michael. Prince William refusing to reveal how much tax he pays. Is he obligated to do that? What's the story here?
Well, he has an exception. He doesn't have to reveal the income tax he pays on the Duchy of Cornwall. Duchy of Cornwall, a vast empire, a state across many counties, farmland and so on, but also owns the property around the Oval cricket ground in South London. And in the past, his father, the king, when he was Prince of Wales and owned the Duchy of Cornwall, he did make clear how much tax he was paying. I think it was slightly short of £6 million a year. Now, Prince William has chosen not to reveal how much tax he pays.